Hey, so you're having some feels, or maybe you're overwhelmed, or maybe you're just trying to be proactive and just knowing that there's so much going on in the world and you want to find ways to take care of yourself. We know that there's a lot happening. There's a lot to be having feelings about. There's a lot of reason to be overwhelmed, from COVID, the US election, environmental issues, police brutality. Like, the list is so long, and that's not even taking into account what's going on in your personal life. So I'm glad you're here. I think this video will be of some use to you, and we're just gonna go ahead and dive right in. Hey. Thanks for being you. So I have 4 things that I want to share with you around processing the fear or overwhelm around what's going on in the world. Number 1, check yourself on the doom scroll. If everything that you're reading, or the content that you're consuming, or the conversations that you're having with friends or family, if all of it is just confirming your fears or steeping you in your worries and your doubts and your anxiety, if it's just digging you into a deeper hole of hopelessness, stop it. Stop. What are you doing? Why? I know that many of us want to stay informed on what's going on in the world, and that's great. That's wonderful. We do have to stay informed about what's going on around us, for sure. And my suggestion is that you set some boundaries around how you engage with what's going on in the world. For me, that looks like not diving into an article about something that happened regarding Black Lives Matter, or right now, as I'm recording this, the election, not diving into any of this until I know that my head is in the right space, that my schedule is set up correctly in order to handle whatever I might feel or however I might react to what I'm reading. If there's another news story about a Black person who was killed by the police, I don't dive into that story until I'm fully ready to engage with all of myself in that story, knowing that that's going to bring up some grief, that's going to bring up some anger, that's going to bring up possibly some hopelessness, some anxiety. I don't dive into that until I know that I have the resources, the support for myself. And that doesn't necessarily mean a therapist or even another person. That means, like, do I have the space and time that I know I'll need to take care of myself around that? Do I have a glass of water with me while I'm reading it? It can be something so simple as hearing about, oh, there's this story that's coming out, or I know right now there's the election and it's just a looming thing everywhere you go on the internet. There's something about the election. So we know that. If that's something that's bringing you anxiety, if that's something that's making you feel like you need to know more and you need to have all the information, and that's not something that's necessarily serving you right now, what can you do to take care of yourself? What boundaries can you put around? Maybe it's a time boundary where I'm only going to check in about this for 30 minutes a day, or I'm only going to check in about it after 5 p.m. What does that look like? Maybe it's not a time boundary. Maybe it's a boundary in terms of like how and where and when you're willing to talk about it with other people. Maybe there's only certain people that you want to talk about it with. What are those boundaries? So that's number 1. Check yourself on the doom scroll and set some boundaries around how you're engaging with what's going on in the world. Of course, we can't anticipate a news story coming across our news feed or our Facebook thingy or our Instagram scroll, whatever it is. But when it comes up, that doesn't mean that you have to immediately click on it. That doesn't mean that you have to go, oh, I need to read all about it. You can stop yourself and check in and go, what most takes care of me, my energy, my time? So consider that. Next, I want to encourage you to let yourself feel, like really feel. There's a difference between thinking about your feelings and feeling your feelings. There's a difference between talking about your feelings and feeling your feelings. There's a difference between what we are typically taught all across the world, we're taught all these different ways to avoid our feelings, to manage them, to control them, to make them go away, suppress them. All of those things have their purpose, but feelings have their purpose as well. And when we do that, when we manage, control, suppress, attack our feelings, we get in the way of the natural process that we have all been gifted as human beings to feel, to sense things. So whether it's grief or rage or joy, gratitude, despair, whatever it is, actually let yourself feel it. Like, it's okay. It's natural. It's human to feel. And if you feel like you shouldn't have all of these reactions to what's happening in the world, in the news, in your communities, can we cut that out? Can we not do that? It's normal to have feelings. It's okay, and it's human to be impacted, influenced by what's going on around us. And not only that, but our feelings have information within them that are signaling us different messages, different ideas, and different awarenesses around what it is that we want, what's most important to us, what are our values. Our feelings point to these things. And when we dampen our feelings, when we suppress them, we suppress the energy that is flowing through us. You know, people often talk about how emotions are energy in motion. And when we suppress that, we are suppressing this energy. And the energy doesn't just go somewhere, like, doesn't just disappear. The energy stays here and manifests itself in other ways. And sometimes that can have an impact on our health, on our emotional and mental well-being, on our relationships. So there's stuff in these feelings for each of us. And if some of the feelings that are coming up for you are numbness or kind of feeling apathetic to like whatever happens, or if you're in that overwhelmed place and you can't even really access like a specific emotion, I highly recommend breathing. I highly recommend breathing, and not just some like shallow breaths where many of us, especially in Western countries, we breathe from our chest up here. We breathe and our shoulders go up when we inhale, and we go. That's not a real breath. I don't know if you know, but that's not a real breath. A deep belly breath where your stomach actually expands. That's how you know that the breath has gone beyond surface level. And when we breathe from our chest, often that is a way that we block our feelings. That's a way that we stay right where we are in the constricted, suppressed, avoidant of our feelings place. And if you're ready to actually dive into those feels, do some deep belly breaths. The third point I have for you around how to process your feels about the state of the world is to go to your sources of support. And when I say support, similar to what I was saying earlier, it doesn't necessarily have to be your people. Though if you can think of a few people or maybe just one person that you can go to for support, I want you to like write down a list of the different forms of support that you have access to you. That can be people, that can be places, that can be certain things, that could be a book, it could be music, it could be podcasts, it could be puzzles, it could be a certain TV show, it could be water, it could be getting some fresh air or soaking in the sun. But brainstorm, like, what are the different sources of support that you have? We all have some form of support available to us, even if it feels like we don't, even if it feels like we're alone and everything is hopeless. We all have some form of support. It may not be the kind of support that you want. It may not be the kind of support that would really nourish you, but you have something. And what is that? Those few things that you can tap into to keep you going, to nourish you, to soothe you and comfort you. What is that? And I would actually love to know, like, if you could put in the comments, maybe like 3 things that you know support you. I would love to know that. I think it's really interesting, all of the different, we're all different human beings, and We all have different forms of support, different things that we hold as supportive. And my 3 things may be completely different from yours. I know for me, I love a good escape into Netflix or Hulu or listening to music or even writing some songs or maybe just talking with some friends about nothing or about the deep things or about the feelings. All of those things are comforting to me. And it really depends on what's going on for me, what I'll choose to support myself with. So let me know in the comments, what are 3 things that support you? And before I go on to my next point, I want to say that these few points that I've just made, pushing down our feelings, consuming, activating content or triggering content without any boundaries, and not taking care of our needs or setting up sources of support for ourselves, all of these things can lead to overwhelm and burnout. And I actually made a video about burnout. I'll link that in the description. But allowing ourselves to feel and even just breathe and seeking out our sources of support and checking ourselves on the doom scroll, on the overconsumption of this triggering content or upsetting content with no boundaries, and actually setting some boundaries around that. These are things that we can do to not only prevent the overwhelm and eventual burnout that can come from those things, but these also resource ourselves to go, okay, this is the state of the world. I grieve, I cry, I worry, I feel all the feels. Okay, what now for me? What's my role? What can I do? If we're taking care of ourselves in these other ways, answering these questions for ourselves, figuring out what is my part in all of this that's going on in the world is not necessarily easier, but can have so much more ease. Because we have the access to our energy and our resources within ourselves. And we also, with the feelings, have access to this information about what's most important to us because we're letting ourselves feel it. So the answers to those questions will most likely be more aligned with who you are and what you have available to you. And it's more likely that your answers to these questions will be more sustainable for you and more sustainable for the world. So that then brings me to my last point, which is to stop trying to control the future and create it instead. We can predict the future as much as we want, but we will never know what will actually happen until we get there. And the way that we get there is by being right here, because there is no there. There's only here. We can remember the past and we can have ideas and dream about or have these different images of what is in the future, but all we know is right here. And right here is where we have all of our power. And not only the power to be able to take care of ourselves and manage what's going on in the world right now, but also the power that we have is a power to create the future, to not just live at the whim of whatever is going on in the world, but to go, okay, this is what's happening in the world, and here I am with all my feels, but also with all of my ideas, with my gifts, with my skills, with my visions for what's possible in the world. What can I do right now to create this future that I see possible? Trying to control the future, which is kind of what we're up to when we're doom scrolling. We're like, maybe if I just have all the information, maybe if I just know what's going on in the world, then because if I don't know, then I can't control it. Maybe if I do know, I can influence it just a little bit. No. Having the information, of course, can inform you, but if you're coming from a place of trying to control the future, trying to manage what might happen in the future, especially when we're talking about this on this collective scale, where not only what I'm doing is influencing the future, but what the other 7, almost 8 billion people on the planet are doing creates the future. To try to put yourself in the position of controlling, 1, sucks. 2, isn't effective. 3, takes you away from what you could be doing right now to plant seeds for the future that you want. And if you're down for that, if you're looking for some support on getting to this place of answering these questions of what can I do, what's mine to do here, I want to invite you into Whole Self Liberation, which is an online school for liberatory living that I have just founded. This is a place for you to take your feels, your fears, your desires for another way of being in the world and put all of that into action. Within the school, you'll be able to take practical and actionable classes from some of my favorite people in the world, where they'll be guiding you towards your own answers, your own way of making a difference in the world. So if you're interested in joining us, head over to wearewsl.com and you'll be able to find all the details about how to apply and join us in our first season of the school, which starts in January of 2021. And with that, I would love to know in the comments how this video resonated with you, what you're taking away from it, if there's anything that landed or anything that brought up other questions for you. I would love to hear about it in the comments, or you can DM me on Instagram at AndreaRanaeJ. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video. That supports this video and getting out there more and getting to more people. And most of all, thank you for giving me your time and energy and making it to the end of this video. I love you. We gonna be all right, y'all. We are all right. I'll see you next time.